This is a nice little vintage dresser that we just purchased, and my husband has got some repairs to do on it. And it comes with a nice mirror, and the mirror doesn't attach on the top, on the back. My husband's putting some glue in some places where the wood was cracked a little or split, and he pushed the glue down into the cracks good, wiped off the excess, and then clamped it so it would be really tight. And he also used some glue on the dovetail joints that were pretty tight, but he added some just to tighten it up a little bit more, to secure it more, but it was in pretty good shape. But you usually have things like this. Just pushed it really down with his fingers to get it in the cracks. And there's a little crack there near the bottom on one that he put some glue in and used a little tool there to really push it in good. And then clamped it. And that's going to really secure it good with the Titebond glue. And this piece here in the center between the two top drawers was loose. So he pushed some glue in the seams with a little tool and then clamped it, and then also screwed, or actually he drilled a pilot hole first and then a countersink hole to screw in a little screw to keep it really tight and not hit the drawer on the bottom. And usually he'll let these clamps sit overnight just to make sure they're really good and dry and secure. And these were, one of the drawer stops was missing. I think he had to replace one of those and kind of secure them. And one of them we actually had to put just a little bit of glue in to really keep it tight. And there was a little piece there on the drawer that was loose, so there was a channel there that he was able to put some glue on and a little wood piece to secure it. And this was a repair he did to the bottom of one of the drawers that had lost part of the runner. So he actually used a form, a piece of wood there, to guide his saw, little hand saw, to trim it straight or even. And then that way he can add a little piece of wood strip there to glue it on to fix it so that it has a proper height of runner for the drawer. And this is kind of a common repair in older pieces that he'll have to do a lot of times. Usually if we get a piece that doesn't need any repairs, we feel really blessed. But also he had to use this tool to square off the corners because the saw left it rounded. And there he glues that new piece on and clamps it. So it's just going to be like part of the drawer was originally. And a lot of times these pieces get worn from just using the drawers. And it's why a lot of people get rid of their pieces, because the drawers are messed up. Now he's checking the measurement to make sure it's even and the right height, or see the height he wants it. And then he can take his little handsaw and just trim it to the right height. And then he'll use a sander to kind of smooth it where he's cut it. So there, it's the right height now, so it'll slide properly and it won't have that worn, uneven edge. And smoothing it down so it won't catch on anything. And I noticed that this top piece is raised and the bottom part of it is all flat, but it's got a similar shape. So I'm going to make a mold of this and put some around the outsides. And if I have to add a few little things to it to make it connect, then I can just use some extensions of the tail or something. So I'm just kind of measuring here to see how much I've got. I think I need just a little bit more. Okay. I'm using this Easy Mold, which is made by Cast and Craft, and I think I get this at Joann's, but I've seen it at other places. So I just want to make sure I have enough here, because this part here, see, I kind of do this as my measure. I take half of it and just see if that can cover that. Mostly because I'm going to have the same amount of the other color, which is going to make it get hard. So I need to have, of course, more than this. So you want it to come down on the sides. So that looks like that's enough now. So I'm going to get my purple out. You can kind of roll it in a shape so that you can measure, so you can see if you can get about the same amount. And I know this was how much I started with in the white before. And I got some out of this other white one to add some to it. Let's see how these look. Okay, so these are about the same amount here. You can measure this if you want to be totally exact, but I've been doing this so long, I just kind of eyeball it. And this stuff is expensive. I think this one is normally this one box is about $25, but I usually only get it when I have a 50% off or at least a 40% off coupon, which makes it more affordable because I use this stuff a lot. And you just mix it till it looks to be kind of a lighter purple color. And then I usually just kind of roll it out to get it a little even. You have a couple of minutes to work with this. So you want to just start pressing it down. And you'll know when your molding material is ready or done, because it will stop being doughy like. It'll become kind of firm. And this silicone won't stick to anything but silicone. So you don't worry about it getting stuck on your furniture or anything. It'll pull right off. Okay, so that'll only take about 30 minutes, and then it'll be done. Okay, I've got my mold here that I made earlier, and it's been sitting for a while. It needs to sit for 30 minutes, but it can sit longer. And it just, see, it just pulls right off. So that's the mold there. So I'm going to try, and I use a little bit of cornstarch to just brush the inside of this, just so that it doesn't stick or it comes out easier. With these bigger molds like this, it's not as important as when you have ones that are smaller with really deep crevices. And then I just get out the excess powder and I'm probably going to do just half of one of these at a time, since these are messed up. Or they break in the middle. So. And this is just, I don't have the package because I've already cut it up in little squares to use. But this is the Sculpey brand of Air Dry Clay. And I use different brands. When I pop this out, we'll kind of see how close this is here to the one on top for the sides, for their shape, because I've never seen one that's been done like this where the other parts are flat. So and if I need to just make an extra tail or something to make it long enough, I can do that easy. When you have bigger ones like this, you can use like a pizza roller a pastry roller, just to make sure it's flat, but as long as it's mostly flat. And then this will just pop right out. And any little excess that shows that you don't want there, you can just cut those off with this knife. Just to smooth. See, I'll be able to tell. I'm gonna place this before I use my glue on it, because I want to just tell to see how good this is going to fit. Do an extra tail right in there. I can cut that right there. There, so I've got it kind of fitted how I'm going to do it. And again, you want enough glue that it's covering the back of it, but you don't want it to be too sloppy thick, but you want to just make sure you've really covered every piece back here. Um, Today I am going to, since all the molding is dried, and I did fill in, there was a little line here, a seam, like what's going around the drawers here, for design. But I decided to fill that in because I've got a piece of tissue that I'm going to decoupage on the front area there and some on the sides. But today I'm going to prime this with Dixie Belle Boss, which is good for blocking odors, and it keeps bleed through from happening. And you want to wait, when you paint with this, you want to wait about 24 hours for it to dry before you paint with your paint on it. Let it dry really good. Jar. And you want to stir this up really good. Okay, I'm going to be painting most of the body on this dresser white. The top I am going to paint green, and the main mirror will be white, and then the frame for the mirror will be green. But I'm going to start with the white, and I'm just using Behr chalk paint. And I like to paint just the edges of the drawers first, so they can be drying, and then I will push them in and paint around them. I'll probably have to do 2 coats on this.
Here's the white.
I am going to start doing my second coat on this piece of white, and I'm hoping it only takes 2 coats. But it might take a third, which is pretty common with white. Okay, I am going to be painting the dark green on this now, and I'm going to paint the front 2 bottom legs and the top and then the frame for the mirror. And this is made by Debi's Design Diary, DIY paint, and it's an Aviary. It's a really pretty olive color. And this will probably take 2 coats also. And I know my white will probably take another coat also. Okay, this is the color as it dries, you know, it's going to lighten up, but then when I go to seal it, it will actually darken it up a little. But it actually is a really pretty color, and this is one of the new colors for 2022, which I've always liked it. Okay, I'm going to seal this piece now that it's all painted and dried. I've got 3 coats of white on it and 2 coats of the green. And I'm going to use this water-based polyurethane for floors, and it's in crystal clear satin. They don't make that in flat, or I would buy it in flat. But I've used this on a few pieces lately, and it works out really good. You're going to see this get darker when I put the sealer on, but it will dry lighter. Then I will be putting some wax on this afterwards. Yeah, I am going to distress this a little bit, not super heavy, but a little bit. And I'm going to use the Scotch Bright Pad just to go over the whole thing, just to get any little nits or anything off from the sealer. And then I have a 120 sandpaper here that's I've used a little bit, but not a lot, so it's pretty new. And I'm just going to run this along just the edges so that it will just expose just a little bit. I don't want it too heavily distressed. And I think this just helps to really add a lot of character. And it is a vintage piece, so. I'm applying just a little bit of pressure. And then I'll take this Scotch Bright Pad here and just go along the whole thing everywhere. Just that way it gets any little sharp spots off. I have finished distressing the piece, and I usually when I'm doing transfers and I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do them, I like to just use a little bit of tape and tape them on and look at them for a little bit before I do them, but you can move them around. This is from the Prima Redesign. There's 3 individual smaller sheets. They're the size of this paper. And what's good about them is you can cut them up, and you can even separate these flowers if you wanted. They work out pretty good. This one's called White Magnolia. So there's lots of different transfers you can do, but what I like to do is get them in place first. I think I'll do this top one first. And once you kind of know where you're going to put them, you can peel them apart, but you don't want to touch this backing to anything because once you stick it, it's stuck. And what's nice is they're clear, so you can sort of see where you're going with it. You can adjust it. Yeah. I usually like to press on it first a little bit, and then it comes with this little stick. You just want to rub it, and this gets it off onto your piece. I like to rub all over it first and then start on a corner, rubbing it more as it kind of comes off this piece of paper or plastic. And if you start to pull it off and it's not rubbed off good enough yet, you just rub it some more. You can sort of see when you rub it enough, it kind of gets cloudy looking there. You can sort of tell, but they're pretty easy to do. And you'll miss any, you'll see it on this paper. And if you do, you can just put it back in position and rub it. I like to use the back of this paper to kind of burnish it to make sure it's on good. And these are very, very thin. Okay, I have got my transfers on, and right here where the drawer opens, I just put the transfer on, and then once it was all on, I just took a razor blade and just sliced right in there. So don't forget to do that, because if you open the drawer, it'll just tear it. And then I usually take a little Scotch Bright Pad or a sponge sander, very, very fine, and just kind of rub over it. And of course, once you put the transfers on, you want to really rub it, make sure, and rub it outward, because if this leaf isn't down on the end and you rub it this way, it might pull it off. So always, at first, when you put it on, rub it good, and then rub it all around, and then just go very lightly with a Scotch Bright Pad over it, just to make sure it's on there good. And then I am going to be waxing this dresser with clear wax and then gray wax, so that the gray gets into the details a little bit. But I want to protect my transfers, so I'm just using the same sealer that I used on the dresser, and I just want to just go over these. And I have a little bit of sealer left from sealing it yesterday, so I saved it because I knew that I was going to be doing this. And then I'll let this dry for probably about an hour, and then we'll wax it. And then I have a couple on the sides. I'll do those and then I'm all done. Okay. Because this dresser is one of those that can use the mirror or not, because there's no holes in the top of it, whenever I have that situation, I've got some felt cut, and I'm going to glue it on the bottom here, so that if they ever decide they don't want to use the mirror, it wouldn't have damaged the top from just sitting on it, because it actually screws onto the back with a piece of wood like this. So that's what I do, just to make it a little better. And I cut some felt in strips, and it should be right about the width of this. I cut it just a little bit thinner so that it doesn't show. And this is a Tight Bond glue. I pre-cut these little pieces too, so that it will sit right there. And I'll turn this upside down in a minute, so the weight of it sitting on this will help hold these pieces in place. Okay. I am going to use my gray wax from Country Chic. I've used this before on something else, and it really leaves a nice color. But I'm going to do the clear. This is a natural Minwax paste finishing. So I'll do this first, and then the gray. And this is just going to make it even a little bit smoother. Gives it a nice finish, and it's just an additional sealer for it to protect it. kind of gives it just, it's very subtle. I'll do it a little bit more in the details where it's going to show. But it just softens it. Wipe any excess off. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did like it, if you haven't already, please click on subscribe and like, and leave any comments if you'd like to, and check out some of my other videos on Carolyn's Painted Pieces. Thanks.